I want you to imagine something with me for a second, and be honest with yourself when you answer this in your head. If two cops walked up to you on a quiet street, killed your dog, right in front of you, then tased you, put a knee in your back and said it was your fault, would you trust the system to fix it? Or would something inside you break in a way you never come back from? Now imagine they picked the one man on that street who was trained his whole life to hunt monsters for a living. Yeah, that man was me. My name is Malcolm Hayes, and I spent 12 years in Delta Force, taking down people the government doesn't admit exist. I've been shot at, blown up stranded behind lines on the wrong end of the world. And somehow the most dangerous moment of my life was a sunny walk in my own neighborhood with my dog, Rex. Let me start with him, because if you don't understand Rex, you won't understand the rest of this story. He was a big German shepherd, black and tan, 6 years old, sharp as hell, stubborn, loyal in that way that makes you feel like maybe you don't deserve it. I picked him up after my 3rd deployment when I was trying to figure out how to be a normal human being again. I trained him myself. Obedience, protection, search work, all of it. He slept by my bed. When the nightmares came back, bumped my elbow. When I forgot to eat, sat with his head on my knee. On the days I didn't talk to anybody at all. You know what I mean? Our thing when I was home was the evening loop through the neighborhood. Same route every time. Not because I'm boring. Because habit is how you convince your brain you're safe. The air that day was perfect. Soft light. Fresh. Cut grass. A lawnmower in the distance. Sprinklers. Ticking somewhere down the block. Quiet hum. You only get in suburbs that think bad things happen somewhere else. People watched me like always. I'm a tall black man with a military build and a working brain. So let's not pretend I didn't notice curtains twitch, conversation dip when I pass the cautious smile. The guy with the golden retriever who crosses the street instead of sharing the sidewalk back in certain countries. When people stared like that, it meant somebody was about to pull a trigger here. It meant they might call the police and let the badge do it for them. So when I saw the cruiser roll the corner and slow down, I already knew this wasn't a friendly drive-by. They pulled up beside me, creeping along at my walking pace. Rex stayed on my left, loose ears, flicking body, relaxed, but reading me like he always did. "Afternoon, sir," the driver called. I stopped, turned with the polite nod they like so much, "Afternoon, officer." Gregory Calloway. Square jaw. Smug eyes. The kind of guy who thinks his uniform is a crown. His partner Anthony Miller was already climbing out, younger, jittery, scanning me up and down like he was shopping for an excuse. "You live around here?" Calloway asked. Real casual. "Yes, sir," I said, clear steady. His mouth twitched at that sir-like respect from me offended him. "Funny," he said, "don't think I've seen you before." "I travel a lot for work," I answered, keeping my shoulders loose. "Private security just got back a few days ago." Miller snorted. "Private security, that like a fancy word for mercenary." I gave a small chuckle, the kind that says I'm not taking the bait, not quite. I train people how to keep other people alive. He didn't like that. Calloway continued. "We got a call about a suspicious person with a large, aggressive dog. Walking the neighborhood, figured we'd check it out. There it was, not what I'd done, just what I looked like. I wasn't aware walking my dog was suspicious," I said. Still calm. "You'd be surprised," he said, smirking. Miller's eyes dropped to Rex. "That's a big dog he trained." "Yes, sir." "Trained for what?" "Obedience, protection, he follows commands." They logged that answer. You could see it made them nervous and excited at the same time. "Gonna need to see some ID," Calloway said. "Not a request, a test." Now this is the moment everybody in the comments thinks they have an opinion about. I would have refused. I know my rights. Sure. But if it were you standing there with two men who clearly wanted a reason, would you lecture them on constitutional law? Or would you try to get home alive? Be honest. I went for my wallet. Slow telegraphed my movements, Rixday. Rex stayed solid as a rock. Miller's hand twitched near his holster anyway. You might want to keep that thing under control, he said. He is under control, I answered. Yeah, Calloway muttered, we'll see. He barely glanced at my ID before waving it off like proof I lived there. Didn't fit the story he'd already written. Now he said, step over here for us a second. Just a few more questions. I could feel that invisible line he'd drawn on this side. I'm a citizen. On that side, I'm prey. I believe I've answered enough, I said. Miller scoffed. Guy seems tense. You hiding something? Hands where we can see them, Calloway added, stepping closer. They were escalating. They wanted friction. I'd seen this dance in a dozen uniforms, in a dozen countries. Calloway smiled. Turn around, hands behind your back, just for our safety. I haven't done anything wrong, I answered. And then it happened fast. Miller grabbed my wrist. Rex felt the spike in my heart rate, the wrongness in the air. Stepped forward one fraction of a step and let out one low warning bark. Not an attack, not a lunge, just I'm watching you. Control your damn dog, Miller snapped, yanking my arm. He is controlled, I said, leash tight body still. That should have been the end of it. Instead, Miller made the choice he'd been itching to make since he saw my skin and Rex's teeth. He drew his gun. I saw the barrel, heard my own voice trying to get out in time. Don't. And then the gunshot cracked the quiet street open. One shot. Rex jerked. Stumbled, legs folding like the ground had been pulled out from under him, and he hit the pavement hard. No dramatics, no slow motion, just wrong as my dog on the ground where he was supposed to be beside me. Time did that weird thing where everything is loud and silent at the same time. I hit my knees. Rex, hey, look at me, buddy. Stay with me. You're okay. You're okay. Lies spilling out, because my brain refused to accept what my training already knew. Behind me, Miller still had his gun up. Calloway shook his head, like he was bored. Told you he was a liability, Miller said. You should have controlled your dog, Calloway added. They shot my partner in front of me and called it my fault. That sound that came out of me. Next, I'm not proud of it. It wasn't tough. It wasn't composed. It was a raw animal sound. All grief and rage ripping up my throat at once, I shifted toward Rex, toward the blood on the concrete. And that tiny movement was all they needed. Taser, someone yelled. Lightning hit my spine. My muscles locked. My body hit the ground. They rolled me. Drove a knee between my shoulder blades, yanked my arms behind me. Cuffed me so tight my fingers went numb. Stay down, don't you move. That's where you belong. One of them said, a voice thick with satisfaction. Yeah, that happened. They booked me while my dog lay dead on the street. No charges, of course. They just needed to make the paperwork say I was the problem, long enough to cover themselves. Hours later, they let me out like they were doing me a favor. That's when my sister Jasmine walked in. Navy suit, natural hair pulled back, eyes full of fire. She's an attorney. And when she saw my face, the bruises, the dried blood that wasn't all mine. She didn't even sit down. What did they charge you with? She asked. Nothing, I said. What happened to Rex? I couldn't say it. She read the answer anyway. She turned on the nearest cop at the desk. Get me your watch, Commander, now. There was yelling, paperwork, threats of lawsuits, policy numbers, rattled off sharp as bullets. She got me my property back, got me out the door. But she couldn't give me back what was lying on that street. At home, the silence hurt no paws on the floor, no tags jingling, no weight at my feet. When I sat down, just Rex's leash on the counter and his bowl by the door like a ghost. I sat there for a long time staring at that leash. We'll file, Jasmine said, pacing the kitchen. Civil rights suit. Complaints to internal affairs. I know reporters who will pick this up will make noise. They are not getting away with this. They already did, I said quietly. No, listen to me, she insisted. This is clear. Excessive force, false arrest, we can… The next morning, Internal Affairs closed their preliminary review. Use of force justified no further action. Less than 24 hours. That was my answer. Something inside me settled. Not calmed, not healed. Just locked in place. People talk about breaking it. Didn't feel like breaking, it felt like remembering. Back overseas. When you run into men like Calloway and Miller, they wear different uniforms, speak different languages, but the pattern is the same. They think they're untouchable. They think the system is theirs. You don't beg those men for justice. You build a box around them and you close it. So I stopped being their victim and went back to being what the army trained me to be. I went hunting, not with a rifle, relax, with patience. First I watched Calloway. He had habits. Guys like him always do. He liked a bar on the edge of town, the kind of place with cheap whiskey, dim lights, no working cameras on the back door. I spent 3 nights at a corner table, hoodie up, pretending to drink. Watching the way he laughed too loud, how he bragged to anyone who'd listen, how he liked to lean on that badge, even out of uniform. One night he stumbled out the back alone. I followed. He dropped his keys, cursed, bent down to grab them. I stepped in, one quick strike to the ribs, another to drop him. Nothing fancy, just precise. He hit the ground wheezing. The hell. I grabbed his collar, dragged him up just enough so he could see my face. You don't get to know who I am, I whispered in his ear, not yet. Then I bounced his head off the wall, not enough to crack anything, just enough to rattle the arrogance loose and let him collapse. Cruel, maybe unjustified. After what he did, you tell me, do you think that's fair? He called Miller, voice shaking. He knew my name. He knew everything he said. He's coming for me. Good. I knew exactly what they'd do next. Not self-reflect, not confess. They'd get paranoid and dangerous. They started making rounds, but not to apologize. Taryn Briggs, former fighter now running a boxing gym for kids. Black outspoken, had filed complaints against them before they showed up at his gym. I watched from my car across the street, long lens in my hands. I couldn't hear the words through the glass, but I didn't need to. Body language said it all, Calloway. Crowding him, Miller. Trying to posture Taryn, not backing down. They left angry. Next, they paid a visit to Dwayne Carter, the guy they'd roughed up months earlier on a bogus traffic stop. This time they didn't bother with probable cause. I filmed them pushing into his doorway without consent. Hands on him, searching with no warrant, no shame. I was building a record, but they were still guessing. They wanted a strong black man who scared them. They had a list. They didn't know they had already met their ghost. I knew at some point they'd circle back to me, not because they had proof, but because their egos needed it. So I prepared. Tiny cameras hidden in the smoke detector. A vent, the bookshelf lenses you'd never spot on a quick glance, all feeding to a secure drive. I left the side gate unlocked, porch light on the place, looking lived in, but careless, like a man who'd started drinking too much. Phone by the couch, half open. Gun safe on purpose. Empty just to watch their eyes go there. Knock on the door late evening. Hard impatient. I opened. Calloway and Miller. Full uniform, full attitude. Evening. Malcolm Calloway said, "Mind if we come in? That depends." I answered. "You got a warrant this time? Or you planning to shoot me instead of my dog?" Miller smiled without humor. "You got something to hide." I shrugged. "Just my temper." That was it. Calloway shoved me in the chest. I stepped back, let myself stumble into the table. whiskey bottle clattering to the floor like some cliché. Miller stepped inside, closed the door behind him. "See? We've been thinking," Calloway said, circling me. "The guy who jumped me, who jumped Miller, he wasn't some random thug. He was trained. Military trained, Delta kind of trained." He watched my face when he said Delta. I gave him a slow little smile. "You think I beat your ass in that alley? I asked if it was me you wouldn't have walked away." That cracked something in him. Miller swung first fist to my ribs. Calloway followed up with one to my jaw. They shoved me into the wall, cursed, threatened. I let my arms go slack, made myself heavy instead of dangerous, because every second of their bravado was on camera, in perfect sound and color. And here's your twist. This was never just about beating them in a dark alley. This was about making them hand me the rope I was going to hang their careers with, while they still thought they were in control. When they finally left, satisfied they'd sent a message. I lay there on the floor for a minute, feeling the bruises bloom. Then I got up, cleaned the blood from my lip, and opened my laptop. I watched the footage. The illegal entry. The assault. The threats. The looks on their faces. The satisfaction. I packaged it with everything else I had. Pulled their history of complaints. The mysterious dead body cams. Their late-night visits to other men's homes. And I hit send. Internal Affairs inbox. Civil Rights Watchdog inbox. Reporters Jasmine trusted. A group of defense attorneys who'd been screaming about these two for years. Subject line: "In case you're tired of no evidence, stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." By the next morning, it was everywhere. Clipped on the local news, dissected on social media, slowed down and paused and zoomed in by people who had seen this story too many times with no receipts. But now they had video of two officers forcing their way into a black man's home, beating him no warrant, no justification. The department tried to play it cool. "We are aware of the allegations. An investigation is ongoing." Translation: "We are panicking." They dragged me back in. Of course, had to try. I walked into the station on my own. 2 feet this time. Jasmine, beside me, chin high, Holt. The captain met us in the interview room. He had the look of a man who smelled smoke but didn't know where the fire was. "You know why you're here," he said. "You're going to tell me anyway," I said. He slid photos across the table, Calloway in the alley, face swollen. Miller on the ground, bleeding. "They say you did this?" Holt said both of them. I shrugged. "They say a lot of things." "Were you there?" he asked. "For which one?" "The assault on Officer Miller, Thursday night." "I was at the Bellagio Casino," I said, calm. "You'll find cameras, receipts, witnesses." I tip well. He didn't like that answer. Another detective poked his head in. Whispered something. Holt's jaw tightened. The video had hit his desk. He slammed his hand lightly on the table. "If you're playing a game with my department—" "I'm not playing," I said. "They are. They've been playing for years. I just finally read the rules." He left 10 minutes later. They uncuffed me and told me I was free to go. Outside, reporters were waiting. "Mr. Hayes, do you have a comment?" I kept walking. Over the next days, the narrative flipped. Calloway and Miller were suspended. Then fired. Old cases got cracked open. People who'd stayed quiet suddenly had proof that they weren't crazy. They weren't lying. They weren't alone. The DA's office, feeling the heat, convened a grand jury. Indictments followed: excessive force, illegal search and seizure, aggravated assault, conspiracy, attempted murder. All that weight they had been so comfortable placing on other people's backs finally landed on theirs. When trial came, the courtroom was full. I sat where they once sat. Me, except this time I wasn't in cuffs. The prosecutor took me through it slowly, letting the jury hear it straight from my mouth. I told them about Rex, about the stop, about the gunshot, about the taser, and the knee in my spine, about waking up in a cell. Like I was the criminal, Then they played the video from my house. No commentary, no dramatic music. Just reality. The defense tried their angle. Mr. Hayes, you've been through a lot. Would you say your trauma affects your perception? You have the footage, I said. You don't need my perception. You're highly trained, he said. Dangerous. To people who hurt innocents, I answered. They didn't like that either. The prosecutor hammered Calloway with his complaint history, 17 in 6 years, all unfounded. Is it your testimony you did nothing wrong in any of these? She asked. I did my job. He muttered. Is your job to break into homes and beat unarmed civilians? She asked. He had no good answer. Miller had to sit there while they replayed his own words on audio dog. Shouldn't have moved. When she asked if he regretted shooting Rex, he hesitated. It was justified, he finally said. The jury heard that you could feel the room turn on him. Closing arguments were short. Some cases are complicated. They said this one was not two men had a pattern of abusing their power. They picked the wrong target. He survived, he brought proof. The jury came back faster than anyone expected. Guilty on excessive force. Guilty on illegal search and seizure. Guilty on aggravated assault. Guilty on attempted murder. The judge looked down at them, tired but clear. You used your badge as a weapon, he said. You brutalized the people you swore to protect. I have no sympathy for you. 25 years in federal prison for each of them, no parole. The room exhaled. Some people cried. Some people clapped once and covered their mouths. I just felt still. Outside, the cameras swarmed again. Mr. Hayes, do you feel justice was served? I looked straight into one of those lenses. They got what they deserved, I said. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, because some of you are cheering. Some of you are thinking. Finally, some of you are thinking. 25 years is too much. Others think it's not nearly enough. So let me make it messier. It only worked because I had things most people don't. I had training. I had a lawyer for a sister. I had the sense to install cameras, the skills to run quiet surveillance, the patience to bait them into recorded crimes without swinging first. I knew how to build a case while they thought they were still in charge. Most people don't get that chance. A few days after sentencing, I went to see Rex. His stone is small, simple Rex, loyal to the end. I knelt down, rested my hand on the top. It's done, I told him. They're not walking away from this one. I told him how I'd played it, how I'd let them think they were hunting me, while every step they took put them deeper into a hole I'd dug with their own shovels, how I'd chosen not to kill them. Not because they didn't have it coming, but because watching them lose their power in public by the book hurt them worse. I made them feel small, I said softly. Made them feel hunted. Made them see there was someone in the world they couldn't push around. You would have liked that. I'll be real with you. It felt good. Seeing them let out in cuffs, hearing guilty over and over, knowing they'd wake up in a cell for the next 25 years, remembering the man they tried to break is the one who broke them instead. But it didn't feel clean, because for every story like mine, there are 100 where there's no camera, no lawyer sister, no special ops training, no audience. So let me leave you with this, because this is where I need you. Do you think what happened to them was justice? Or just a rare exception that looks good on TV if it were your brother, your kid, your neighbor, who got stopped on that sidewalk? Would they have survived long enough to fight back? Should the system only work when the victim is strong, connected, strategic, and angry enough to play chess with people who have guns and badges? Or should it work for the quiet ones too? The ones who don't know how to make their pain go viral? Tell me in the comments what you think. Argue with me, if you need to tell me. If 25 years was too much, not enough. Or exactly right, tell me if you've ever dealt with abuse of power from cops or anyone else. Or if you've seen officers do the right thing and stand up against people like Calloway and Miller. Because those stories matter too. If this story hit you, share it with someone who still believes that kind of thing doesn't happen here. Because sometimes the only way to make people see the problem is to make them sit through it. And if you want more real stories, the messy kind that don't fit in a headline, make sure you're subscribed, hit like, so this doesn't get buried, and drop your experience below. I read them. This isn't just my story, it's ours.